You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Ranke and Andy Zoll. We each have about 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 biggest stories on our websites and discuss the implications they might have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by giving us a positive review, just a thumbs up on YouTube. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach us at Jeff, Andy, or David at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. 2 weeks in a row, Andy.
I have returned. That's right.
Right? Anna, get better soon. Happy you're here.
Yeah,
Happy
no
you're
doubt.
Here.
Yeah.
Jeff, how you doing this week?
Awesome, man. How we doing?
I'm doing good. I'm really starting to coast into the holiday, though. I'm going to be real.
I'm feeling it, too. Yeah, absolutely.
Just like, do I need to write that, though? I'm going to write it in January.
Not for this, though.
No,
Nothing but professionalism here.
Absolutely. Let's get to it. Noses to the grindstone. First story. Company offers 2 free homes as worker incentive. Now, we've talked about it many times, but the labor shortage is impacting nearly every company in the industry. Many companies have increased wages and added large signing bonuses, but one company in Central Florida is offering prospective employees 2 brand new and mortgage-free houses. Mechanical One is an HVAC and plumbing outfit that primarily works on new developments. Next December, President and CEO Jason James says they will raffle off 2 new homes in an effort to, quote, reinvent employee appreciation. The company will spend $500,000 to build 2 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes. To qualify for the drawing, employees must be with the company for a full year and take a financial literacy class paid for by the company. They also need to do 20 hours of community service. Jeff, I really like this as an idea. Seems expensive.
Yeah, here's a real hot take. This is cool. Yeah. This is a great idea. I would agree. And no wonder it was so popular on the site. I think it does reflect a lot of different sort of critical issues that we've been talking about for a while. Mm-hmm. First of all, sort of the uptick in appreciation of the trades. When we're looking at what these folks do in terms of HVAC and plumbing, when you look at those trades overall, their wage increases over the last couple of years are up about 4 to 5%, whereas you see traditional cost of living increases more about 3%. So not huge upswelling of financial support, but an increase that's a little bit better than average overall. Mm-hmm. I think you're also seeing the significance, obviously, that this company and really this sector is placing on retaining and also hopefully using this as a recruitment tool to bring in more people. This company is obviously doing well, and it in looking at all of those things, ran across a really interesting stat from a company called People Ready, which basically is like a help wanted online type site.
Oh, okay.
But they focus on a lot of the trades specifically. And earlier this year, they ran some stuff looking at plumbing, carpentry, construction, and electrical workers. All of the job postings for all those have increased anywhere between 12 and 24%. But those jobs are sitting idle for nearly a month before they can get anybody in there. So you can see while this is, Andy's probably going to talk a little bit, I think, on the effectiveness of what this could be in terms of getting attention and helping to retain or recruit workers. It gets it out there. And I think these industries or these companies are getting to a point where not only are they able to do some of these really cool things like auction off a couple of homes, but maybe they're feeling the pressure to really take these big swings because the traditional approaches just haven't been as effective in getting the high quality workers that they need.
Right. I mean, we've gone through at least 5 years of just really hammering the apprenticeship path, and there hasn't been as much of an uptick. I will say, though, that they're sitting idle for a month. That doesn't seem that long to me in the grand scheme of things. It's still a lot, but I wonder how that kind of compares to other industries.
I think to me, it seems like a lot because typically when those types of businesses are hiring, man, they need somebody now. They're losing bids. They're losing opportunities to grow and expand if they don't have somebody there to obviously do the work, right?
Right. Andy, the CEO first considered giving away a car or a vacation when he jumped to home. I wonder what was behind that.
I mean, as he mentioned here, a lot of his current employees rent instead of own their own homes. So I'm sure that was a consideration because we all are fortunate enough to own our homes. So I think maybe a vacation might sound a little nicer than than that.
I'll take another one.
Sure. Yeah, there you go.
That sounds really greedy.
It's probably a sign I've been at this too long, but I read this and I immediately thought publicity stunt.
Oh yeah.
But as a way to at least get your name out there, not a bad thing. When you say publicity stunt, it sounds cynical, kind of bad. But if you're just trying to get your name out there, this is all publicity is good publicity, and this is all over the place. Not the least of which on our site. So
yeah, I mean,
more power to them.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, like when what was the company that did the donut in chief, or the chief donut maker? Paying $500,000 for something like that, like this, I feel like marketing wise, it's already paid for itself in terms of reach. And at the end of the day, he needs employees, so hopefully they can get some people in the door.
I'm curious how. Obviously, it's good to draw attention to your company, which is new. I'm curious, as an overall strategy beyond just marketing, how effective it would be, because you're talking about 2 people who get a free house out of about 100 workers. Now, depending on how many they attract through this promotion, your odds could fall a little more. So,
yeah,
I mean, are you guys a little more tempted to apply for a gig if you have a 2% shot at a house?
Well, you have to be there a year, right?
Right.
In order to qualify for this one. I think if you're weighing your options in terms of, because right now, if you are this type of skilled tradesman, if it's HVAC or plumbing, you've got your pick. You've probably got a lot of different opportunities. And if you see this company that's investing internally like this in their employees and doing these types of things, I think it would skew me.
Yeah.
I mean, it would definitely play a part in deciding where I want to go and who I feel like working for.
Yeah.
We see a lot of these places too, just either from things we see through the news media or just personal experiences where you can tell where that person coming into your home is not a big fan of who they work for.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
They are not always a big advocate of their own company. I think this shifts that if you've got a chance to win a house. Because like David was saying, even if you don't need that home, if you own your home, a very intelligent person once told me, well, they stopped making dirt a long time ago. So even just to get the lot, I mean, that's a great investment to have.
Yeah.
So.
And it is, so basically the company does have 100 employees now, but it just started in July. So none of the employees actually qualify yet. But, if it gets people to stick around a little bit longer, I agree with Jeff. It would make me, if I have 2 up in the air, I'm going to choose the chance at a house, maybe over a signing bonus.
And we're not privy to what other steps they might be taking to retain their employees either. I doubt this is the be-all, end-all of those efforts. I was a fan of the company paid financial literacy class. I could use one of those myself.
I talk about that all the time, about how in high school and college, I took many classes, and the one I needed was, this is how you do finances.
Exact same.
Personal finances.
Yep.
Yeah.
They've started that in high school.
Oh, okay.
My daughters all had that stuff. Like they had to figure out their health insurance and everything. It was pretty impressive.
That's really, I mean, the first time that you sit through that healthcare presentation and you're like, I don't know. I just checked the boxes.
Yeah, right.
And also, I didn't know how severe the consequences were with bouncing checks. I just thought it was kind of fun. Turns out they get angry, litigious. I still can't order pizza like within 30 miles of where I went to college. The one thing that I thought about this is that it also speaks to another problem that we've seen in the labor market, and that's affordable and available housing. And we have another story coming out next week that talks a little bit more about that, with people 3D printing homes. It's just, we see it in Madison locally. There's just not enough housing, affordable and available housing, to meet the needs of the job market.
Wages have not kept up with home prices for decades. So this is not a solution to it, but it certainly highlights it, as you said.
Yeah. All right. Our next most popular story this week: home workers' fall ruled a workplace accident. In 2018, a sales manager who was working from home slipped on a staircase and broke his back on his way from his kitchen to his home office. Well, last week, a German court ruled that the man could be covered under his employer's workplace accident insurance policy. The employee argued that employees who work from home should not receive less protection from accident insurance than others in the company. Some experts believe work-from-home injuries might be, quote, the next workers' comp trend. According to some experts, just because the traditional office setting has shifted, that doesn't mean that injuries won't occur. This could include common ergonomic issues like back, neck, and shoulder pain, along with eye strain and fatigue. So, Jeff, what constitutes a workplace accident when you work from home?
Okay. So when we talk about workplace accidents, I don't think stumbling over some suitcases because you were too lazy to put them away in your kitchen qualifies.
Okay, counselor.
Okay. I'm going to look at OSHA, and here's what they define as a recordable injury or illness.
Okay.
Any work-related fatality, any work-related injury or illness that results in loss of consciousness, days away from work, restricted work, or transfer to another job. I'm pretty sure this sales guy could still handle his day-to-day responsibilities.
He broke his back.
Any work-related injury or illness requiring medical treatment beyond first aid, okay. Any work-related diagnosed case of cancer, chronic, irreversible illness, fractured or cracked bones, teeth, or punctured eardrums. Now, the spirit of what OSHA is talking about here, they're talking about operating environments that are unavoidably and potentially dangerous, okay? Things that you can't avoid. I don't think this is what they had in mind. If this guy, and I'm not sure, who does he work for? Does it say?
It didn't say the company, no.
Okay, but let's just, for instance, say this is somebody who works, he's in a sales position with a manufacturing firm, okay? This company potentially has all of these safety concerns to worry about in terms of producing their product and keeping employees safe on the plant floor. Now, if they have to turn attention to somebody working at home, and this is a horrible and unfortunate incident, I'm not trying to be completely without pity here, but I don't think it should qualify in the same respect, because what my worry would be is it's going to take funds and attention away from where the safety needs really lie with this company.
Yeah.
If we're sitting here in the office and in our new conference room and a light falls out of the ceiling and hits me in the head, that's workplace related. If I trip going to the refrigerator to get a soda, that's not on the company. Okay. And that's what this feels more like. There is the technicality and the legal elements of it. I get that. But there's also the spirit of what this is intended to do and how this is intended to help support the workforce. And this situation does not feel relevant to me.
I see. Maybe it's this because of the circumstances around this particular accident. But I did think about this a lot during the height of the pandemic, because we talked a lot about burnout. But I also thought that something like this should receive the same attention, but with common sense. So you're right. Like some things like, tripping on the way to the refrigerator or another stumble. But, say, I don't know, say I'm writing from home while I'm working from home and I get electrocuted by my laptop. Like,
fair.
Yeah. So I think it's like, I think that sometimes when stories like this come out, we're always seeing extremes. There's no common sense. But I thought that Andy, I don't know if it ever occurred to you, but like, I thought with so many people working from home that we would actually see a lot more of this. I was surprised we haven't seen more of this.
I was thinking 2 years ago at this time, I probably would have maybe scoffed at this story. And then we were all fortunate enough to be kind of forced to work from home. And we were all still on the clock. So while your point is well taken that, not every workplace injury is created equal, that's almost not really what I think we're talking about here. We're just talking about whether people in their own homes should be protected when they're on the clock. And I think that's two different discussions. So it was just interesting how life kind of forced perspectives to change a little bit about that. So on those two different perspectives, where do you stand on both? I think reasonable people can disagree about what constitutes injury if you're walking to the fridge in the office. And then I think if your workplace is your house, that's your workplace, and you should be covered by workers' compensation.
Yeah.
So
not being an attorney or anything.
I did misread this. He tripped on the staircase. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I read that incorrectly. So basically, he was coming downstairs.
Oh, I thought you were just like making up like
no.
He tripped on suitcases.
I thought it was suitcase. It's staircase. My
this
bad.
messy man.
No. Still.
Yeah.
Okay. That is going from one area to another. That is not a work-related injury, in my opinion. I understand that's his office. That's his work environment.
Yeah.
The company should not be on the hook for that.
Yeah.
But then your quibbles with the whole work comp system, yeah? Not with just working from home, because that could have happened at any office where he's walking down the staircase,
I think it depends on the spirit of the situation. Okay,
Yeah.
if you're going downstairs in an industrial environment and they weren't properly, there wasn't the right placemat, matting and stuff like that in place. The stairs were slippery, all that type of stuff. Because you're in that operating environment, that's different than having a little too much padding on the stairs and doing it in your socks.
True, but I mean, if you fell going down the stairs in our office building, that would be workman's comp. Even if it was, on your break or whatever.
Okay, but I'm also at this building.
Yeah.
Not at home.
Yeah.
To me, that's different.
No, I agree. I agree on the agree to disagree point. But I was also
that is the nicest way you've ever said you're wrong.
Well, the other
How
point
long have you
is,
been married? You're getting good at this,
right? You just gotta massage the cord. We do have a comment from somebody that's watching us live. That's also something I should have noticed on the at the beginning of this. We are going live today, so if you do have any questions, like Nolan here, please make sure to send those in, and we'll get to them in a minute, Nolan. But it made me think about how it's a more empowered employee now, in that companies would be well served to do by their employees, again, within reason, before it ever gets to this. So especially during the pandemic, things were weird. And, we kind of saw it with how none of the executives really moved or anything like that. So again, all within reason. Now we'll get to Nolan. Nolan says, I once fainted at my place of work and was taken to the ER. None of the expenses were covered by workers' comp. Should it have been? Yes.
Depends.
Maybe.
What? If there's a pre-existing health condition, if what was going on at work led to you passing out,
yeah,
I think those are different things. But otherwise, this is why you have medical insurance, right?
Yeah. Yes, but I do think that workers' comp should be there to cover if there was any sort of lost work or anything like that. It does. Okay.
That I would agree. That I would agree with.
Do we want to get into the absurdity of the American healthcare system here, or we'll save that?
Let's get down to it right now. It's garbage, doll. It's garbage. Let's put a pin in that for 2022.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll just see what kind of changes they make to the system, and then we can get back. There was one law firm, Woodruff and Sawyer, that said their take on it was that, yes, remote and telecommuting workers typically are covered under workman's comp policies if the injury or illness occurred while an employee is completing a work task during work hours. So I think that's where there's that little bit of is going down the stairs to the kitchen
right
a work task, In most cases, the remote worker has the burden of proof, meaning that they have to be able to demonstrate that they were acting in the interest of the employer at the time they got sick or injured. However, the courts have found that even though the employer does not have control over an employee's home environment, that lack is not a reason to deny claims. Therefore, employees are responsible for providing the same safe work environment in both their on-site and remote workers. I thought that kind of summed it up really nice. And I also like the comment on the site where his name is TK Field Events. Got to work on that screen name, bud. He says that you request and are granted work from home, expect an OSHA visit sooner rather than later. And that's a very bad deal all around.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope.
Right.
I just want to throw one more thing in there.
Yeah.
I saw this stat from the National Safety Council. In 2019, total cost for injuries was over $170 billion. About a third of that was just the administrative costs involved with processing claims and things like that. That's, again, where I'm coming from a little bit when we start getting into this type of potential work injury.
I mean, when it comes to all the bureaucratic red tape that goes into that, a lot of waste could be cut out.
Right.
A lot of waste. All right. Our next most popular story. GM warns common aftermarket accessory can ruin Corvette's mirrors. GM issued a warning to owners of the Corvette C8. GM says that if owners install an aftermarket hardwired radar detector, it could send too much voltage to the driver's outside mirror and fry the defrosting system. The problem causes, quote, a poor operation and appearance, including numerous lines shown in the mirror and a dim reflection at all times. Sorry, that's funny because if you see what it looks like, that's a ridiculous statement. CNET's Roadshow describes the line pattern as, quote, digital worms that are disturbing and horrifying. Because it's an aftermarket modification, warranties don't apply and there's no real fix. If it happens, the only thing to do is replace the mirror. Now, Andy, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. I feel like disturbing and horrifying are a little heavy, but it's still a nasty problem.
It's a bit of a safety issue more than any existential crisis, I think.
Yeah, the height of first world problems.
Horrifying was a bit heavy.
I saw.
My God.
I saw the photo that CNET posted. I couldn't really tell. I guess they're saying you have to replace it. I couldn't really tell whether you could see a whole lot out of it.
Yeah,
you certainly couldn't in the photo, but I don't know if that was a good perspective of objects maybe being closer than they appear in that mirror.
If you have a Corvette and you're capable of making aftermarket modifications to it, it's going to be a pain, but maybe you can swing the mirror replacement. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
This is the only reason I don't own a Corvette, by the way, is all the aftermarket issues to avoid.
You are not giving
speed
up
traps.
Your radar detector.
That's right.
For anybody, including a brand new Corvette. That's where you draw the line.
I did not know that radar detectors were still a thing, Jeff.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I thought once you got past like 20, you just kind of figured, well, if I get caught, I get caught. I mean, I can remember in high school that was a big deal.
Yeah,
then you got frustrated because every time you drove past like some sort of store with a security system, it set off the fuzzbuster.
Doesn't
old school Cobra.
Doesn't Google tell you now when there's a speed trap?
It does, but it's not always. Well, I mean, I guess that's
a little shaky.
Yeah,
Not as good as the old fuzzbuster.
I still slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The first one I saw was in my grandpa's old van, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. But I feel like, I don't remember what age I was, but all of a sudden it was like, I don't need that.
Yeah. I don't know. So I was surprised that that's even a thing.
Yeah.
Horrifying. It was a weird picture, though. It does look pretty crazy when that thing fries.
Yeah.
Interesting, too, with Corvettes, because you've got this really iconic brand for GM and for Chevy. And when you look at the sales patterns, it really follows the economy. When the economy's up, they make more. And I know a lot of it is because they have a lot of special editions and there's a lot of different factors, not that it makes it different than a traditional vehicle. But when you saw the economy tank in like the late 2000s, so did Corvette sales.
Okay.
When things were going well in the middle teens, Corvette sales were up. Now they've kind of gone down again. And I just bring that up because with it being such a recognizable brand of its own, you'd think GM would kind of go above and beyond and making sure it attracts nothing negative like this.
Oh, yeah.
You'd think they would just make sure it's, it lives up to its name and its expectations a little bit. So I was a little surprised there. But when you do a little research on Corvettes, one of the things they are not known for is being ultra reliable. They tend to get issues right around the 40, 50,000 mile mark.
Okay.
In particular, electrical issues seem to be very prominent with these vehicles, especially since they started doing more with the digital dashboards and things like that. So they are touchy to begin with.
Yeah.
Then you throw Andy's Fuzzbuster on there and, you're looking for trouble, it seems like. And you would think Corvette owners would kind of know this.
Yeah.
They're a pretty passionate group. Whenever we run something on the site about these cars, it always gets a ton of attention. So it's a little surprising that this would be a surprise to GM and Chevy, I guess.
Yeah. And to me, it just seemed like that's the chance you take with aftermarket parts.
Yeah.
I've always, when I had my old Jeep, I always wanted to put it on a lift, and it was just like, I don't know. Like you start looking into the cost of everything, and you're like, I think it's fine. Like,
well, that is one thing they can get away with here because it is a more expensive vehicle. It's not crazy expensive like some of the real luxury sports cars and stuff, but it's got its very passionate core group. So, and to those folks, replacing something probably isn't a big deal. So they can maybe skirt this a little bit too. Still surprising that it'd be such an issue.
Yeah, the C8 starts at around $61,000 MSRP. And I found it interesting, and you actually are very familiar with the automotive aftermarket, but I couldn't believe it was worth $325 billion in 2021.
Keeps going up too. I mean, go to that SEMA show out in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
It is amazing. First of all, if you have any, just even a passing interest in the automotive side of things, just to see what you can do.
Yeah.
Now, now one of the big factors too that's helping actually grow the market but bring some of the costs down is 3D printing.
Yeah, I feel like, there's been a lot of cool customizations with 3D printing. I feel like it's the aftermarket is a slippery slope. I feel like it's kind of like tattoos, where you get that first one, you're just like, yeah, that's real cool.
That show, we did a story on that electric, what was it, a Ford 250 or something like that from the late 70s that they modified to an electric truck, and people were, and myself included, I wouldn't be characterized as a car guy by any stretch, but that one was piquing my interest a little bit. I'd drive that.
Yeah, no, retrofitting a car into an EV. I mean, that is cool.
Yeah,
that is cool.
I should have looked up the stats on how much they think that's going to be worth, because I suspect it would be worth a lot in the coming few years here.
Oh yeah. All right, let's move on to our next most popular story. Employees faced termination threats as deadly tornado approached. 8 people died when a tornado demolished the Mayfield Consumer Products candle factory in Mayfield, Kentucky. According to NBC News, hours before the storm hit, workers asked managers to leave and seek shelter at their homes. The requests were not only denied, but employees were told that they would be fired if they left. Some workers left anyway, and managers reportedly took attendance to find out who left. Now, according to the company, 110 people were working that night when the building collapsed on top of them. The company has denied the claims and referenced a new policy put in place during the pandemic, which allows employees to leave anytime they want and come back the next day. A team lead supported the company's statement. Jeff, I don't know how you felt, but that just seemed like a bad look all around.
Yeah, horrible. I think what this really reinforces to me is that whole, I mean, it's a cliche and all that, but being as strong as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at the time frame when this happened, the first tornado siren, I think, went off around 5:30.
5:30, yeah.
So you're looking at second shift, okay? Second one at 9 o'clock. I know you have particularly, I don't know, Andy, if you've had a chance to work in a manufacturing facility, but when that second shift hits, the reality is those supervisors, those team leads, they're not your number one people.
Yeah.
They're not. They're the people that got stuck managing the second shift. And I think what this just horrifically reeks of is bad management. Mm-hmm. We've talked about so many managers being sort of tone deaf to the new operating environment. Based on the pandemic, this company put a guideline in that basically said, if you get to work, you start feeling uncomfortable, you can leave.
Yeah.
No questions asked, no issues, no negative ramifications coming back at you. Mm-hmm. These people wanted to do that. And these managers, again, because they're under a holiday rush, they've got a bunch of stuff they need to get out the door. They have a big, I forget the retail, all that they're connected
Bath and
with.
Body Works, yeah.
So obviously there's a ton that needs to get done. Quotas need to be met, all of that kind of stuff. But still, when you put a corporate policy in place like that, you can't just say no.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, when you look at the damage, as horrible as it was that 8 people lost their lives, my goodness, it could have been
all of them.
So much worse.
Yeah.
When there's stories about people literally digging their way out of the wreckage from this building. Mm-hmm. It's horrible. And again, it's bad management, poor decisions being made there. You just feel for everybody in that area, because the ability to rebuild is one thing. The ability to bring this business back, I think, would be much greater question, because they're going to be facing a number of lawsuits and just their reputation. Mm-hmm. Do you think, is it Bath and Body Works? Is that who you said is aligned?
Yeah, I believe so.
Do you think they want to be aligned with this as their supplier?
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to come under huge scrutiny. Mm-hmm. So try to rebuild your plant and get people back in there when you've got this stigma attached to you.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think there might have been some, like, it's just another storm. But once they understood the ferocity of the storm, I think they should have allowed people to go and seek shelter. I don't know. Andy, what did you think about the story?
So this probably will not be the last one, but there's already been a lawsuit been filed over this matter. At the beginning, in the initial NBC report, it was kind of, one side against the other, one person's word against the other, against the company's word, rather. So this will get hashed out one way or the other, kind of, or at least a court will attempt to hash this out as best they can one way or the other, how this actually happened. Mm-hmm. But this is another instance responding to the lawsuit. This is another instance of a company executive maybe not knowing when to hit the brakes on what they're talking about. Because he said, we'll do a review of our processes. We think our people acted heroically in some cases. And then you could have stopped there saying, we'll look into it.
Yeah.
Instead, he says, also, we're hearing reports that our workers didn't follow protocol, which certainly could be the case.
Yeah.
But 8 of your employees are dead. Maybe wait until the completion of the investigation until you go out with that speculation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I looked at their website and the statements, extremely brief, not a lot of detail, was basically looked like this is something they were forced to do. They were forced to put out some sort of response or statement to quote unquote cover all their bases or check the boxes that come up when you have this type of situation arise. You did not get a real heartfelt connection, or that they were doing this because they genuinely felt something was broken and needed to be fixed.
They did start the fund for the workers and the families.
That's true.
So that was there, but that was definitely below the fold on the website. That's all the way down. It's a very concise statement on the website. When we first did the story, it was 8 workers were still missing, but it was actually kind of a relief to find out that all 102 of the workers were accounted for and survived.
Yeah.
According to a local ABC affiliate, in 2019, OSHA actually found 12 violations and fined Mayfield Consumer Products more than $16,000. A lot of these violations were serious in nature and included defects in the electrical protective equipment and problems with exit routes. Attorneys say that the company had more than enough warning time. The first alarm you said went out at 5:30 and then again at 9, and the tornado first touched down miles away. So they had the opportunity. And an attorney that's representing the company said that all proper safety protocols were followed, like you had mentioned. Wait. So you said that the CEO came out and said like they didn't follow.
He said basically as an aside in the AP report that they were hearing reports that workers didn't follow protocol, that their managers acted heroically in many cases to try and protect these people. And certainly that could be the case. Again, could have been much worse.
So maybe that's the attorney coming back over that, where he says, all proper safety protocols were followed that night, and the protocols included sirens and employees huddling within specific areas of the plant when the tornado hit. The one thing that I found interesting was that one of the attorneys noted that the building didn't have a basement, and I don't know many factories that do.
No, I would agree. I would agree with that. And, getting back to that whole following protocol, agree that probably did happen. Okay. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at people, if you're looking at managing that many people on a plant floor, you're going to know those safety protocols. Where they fell down is when people wanted to leave, they should have let them leave. Because I would have probably had the same mentality that you just mentioned. It's a storm. We've been through this. The weatherman overreacts. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
I agree. I could have very easily fallen into that category. But if I'm a manager and that person comes and says, according to the company protocols or company bylaws, I can leave if I don't feel comfortable, you got to let them go. Mm-hmm. And if they would have done that, and if that reduces the fatalities here by even 1, then those plant managers really are heroes because they made a better decision for all involved.
Right. No, it was just really bad time to, assert your force.
Yeah. All
right. Let's move on to our top story this week. And actually, let's hope everything in Mayfield starts getting cleaned up and
absolutely
taken care of. Our top story this week: how the Air Force's $19,000 problem got a 4-cent fix. As first reported by Task and Purpose, an innovative Air Force Master Sergeant recently fixed a $19,000 pair of night vision goggles with a 4-cent 3D printed part. Shannon Fulmer, an Air Force Defender, which is like the same as the military police, was frustrated that defenders couldn't use their new PSQ-20B enhanced night vision goggles because they couldn't properly be fitted to their helmets. Fulmer got innovative. First, he hot glued washers to the helmet's mount adapter, which offered a temporary fix. He then designed a 3D printable part. He took his blueprints to the innovation cell at Dyess Air Force Base outside of Abilene, Texas. About a week later, the design was printed and is now being field tested by members of Fulmer's 7th Bomb Wing Security Force. The design, which uses about 4 cents worth of plastic, has been submitted to the 2022 Air Force Spark Tank Competition, which is an annual contest for pitching, quote, innovative solutions to operational problems. Jeff, I wanted to start with you because isn't it ridiculous that a $19,000 night vision goggle was purchased without first trying it on the helmets?
Well, so a couple things. First, going at that element, they do have the right helmet. It just hasn't gotten out to everybody yet.
Oh, okay.
So this particular unit was really stuck using the same night vision goggles I remember using. Yeah. And these are, it's like going from that black and green, like DOS-based computer screen to what we have now. It is a huge, huge difference from what they were using. And really, in Master Sergeant Fulmer finding this solution, he really exemplified what I feel is a model that's throughout the military, which is mission first, people always. They've got their mission. These folks are in charge of defending some pretty high level assets. Okay. We're talking about obviously bombers, but these troops can be sent to guard any number of things, whether it's different weapon stores, nuclear energy facilities, things like that. So they have a very important mission. In order to accomplish that mission at the highest level, you want them to have the best possible equipment, which in this case are these latest night vision goggles that they have. So the fact that they didn't have the right helmets, they couldn't use these night vision goggles, which is going to help them do their job better and also just protect themselves in a much better case, in case there were some people out there trying to get at what they're guarding. So I thought it was a great exemplary or a great example just of that motto. And I couldn't find the origins of it, but it's definitely anybody who's ever served has heard that. Mission first, people always.
I think it's really cool how it worked out because I feel like there's a lot of this, in my family, we call it putzing, where it's like there's always something can always be done a little bit better. Just like, if we get a shim in there and if we just get a little glue, and it actually turned out to be a fix that, could be used by his entire, the entire security force.
His entire security force. And the cool thing is, again, we mentioned it in there, basically they were at the point where they were going to turn this stuff in and the unit was going to sell it at a loss, essentially, because they just didn't have the right helmet to put it on there. So they had procured this stuff, which anybody who's tried to buy anything for your unit in a military situation, the budgeting's extremely tight, especially now we're seeing defense cuts. So they got all these $19,000 goggles and they would have lost money on the deal. So the fact they can keep them, use them, do their jobs better, huge deal.
So do those just wind up in an Army surplus store then?
They would go to a different unit.
Oh, okay.
But that unit isn't going to have to pay $19,000 for them.
Yeah. Andy, did you read the story or watch this video and think, man, that's some military spending?
I did. And I know we run manufacturing and engineering sites, so I should be, and I am impressed by the use of 4 cents of plastic and a 3D printer to fix this many thousands of dollars issue. But I'm also a child of the 80s, so I was impressed by the use of the hot glue gun. And the 10-cent washer for an initial fix. That's what I enjoyed the most out of that story, I'm ashamed to admit.
The 3D printer was created because of a hot glue gun.
Is that right?
Yeah. The first guy who created the 3D printer.
That makes sense now that you say it.
Yeah. He just started stacking hot glue with a hot glue gun. And he's like, you know what? I could probably do this with a printer.
There you go.
So I also just thought we're going to see more and more of this with 3D printed parts. I'm really excited about the promise of 3D printed designs, because a lot of them have the true opportunity of 3D printing hasn't really been realized yet because we still have legacy design engineers trying to learn about the technology and use it to develop new products. When we start seeing more and more students that were, came up in school learning about how to use it, then we're going to truly see the innovative stuff that can't be manufactured but can be 3D printed. And I think, we're going to see huge changes on anything from engines, car engines to, little widgets on your helmet.
Well, and the Marines, I think, have really kind of led the way in this and trying to get 3D printing out to the field. Okay, when you're printing small parts for your weapon, that's very easy to break or go missing when you're cleaning something. So getting them field ready, getting these, as 3D printing units themselves will become smaller, more durable, greater capabilities, easier to print stuff. The potential military applications are just going to continue to grow and expand. And it reflects a little bit of research here I saw from Markets and Markets. They're estimating that 3D printing within a military spending dynamic is going to be up to $4.5 billion by 2025. Jeez. It's currently at about $800 million. So we're looking at huge growth. And I think that potential comes from, again, on-the-spot replacement. All of a sudden, I don't need to get a new rifle. I just need a new firing pin.
They actually said that the savings, the military is going really hardcore with 3D printing in the field, just because the savings in terms of cargo space, when they're sending people out on, and also one of the more dangerous parts, when people are in the battlefield, is getting them resupply or these parts for their guns. And with a 3D printer, they can make it right there and just bring the digital files with them. I mean, the military is so forward thinking on this that DARPA is now working on 3D printing food out of garbage, to feed people. And I mean, that's just cool.
The 3D printing
is the first taste tester.
And it's not just weapons applications. It's vehicles, it's medical supplies, it's everything.
Yeah. And it's could, just completely change logistics in the military.
It has the potential to, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's move on to In Case You Missed It. And in case you missed it, we like to talk about stories that maybe weren't as popular, but, still could shake up the industry quite a bit. I'll go first because it's about a flying saucer. Ziva wants a flying saucer in every garage by 2040. Ziva Aero Electric's answer to the modern aircraft is, gentlemen, the flying saucer. And I couldn't be more excited. Ziva's flying saucer is called the Zero, and it's an electric personal aircraft in a long line of eVTOL concepts that are vying for a piece of the urban air mobility market. Zero is designed to serve the first responder market first, with a 50-mile range, a top speed of 160 miles per hour, and a 200-pound payload. The company has a full-scale working prototype currently conducting test flights, which actually puts it quite a step above, a lot of people that just have renderings out there. Based in Tacoma, Washington, the company has raised $150,000 via investment platform Start Engine, and the company has some aggressive goals. The flying saucer is going to retail for $250,000, and the company hopes to sell 500 of them by 2025 in just the next 4 years, which... Aggressive. Not just the $150,000 startup money, but, that would be $125 million if everything comes together. They also want Zero to be fully autonomous, so anyone can fly it and you don't need a pilot's license. And they project a Ziva in every garage by 2040.
Of course
now,
they do.
Yes, I'm one for outlandish claims, but those seem a little outlandish.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a little stuck on the application.
Okay.
It's got a 200-pound payload.
Yeah.
So obviously no person is going to be in there.
No, it'll take a person. Tiny person.
One person.
If you actually see it, it's a flying saucer and you just stand up in it, like almost like you're kind of like walking into the world's smallest hallway.
So what are you supposed to take with you if it's for the first responder market?
Yeah.
I mean,
let's just hope that first responder is about $150 and, gets the supplies they need.
Take your stethoscope.
Yeah. Some Band-Aids and gauze.
Bandages,
Yeah.
Lots of Band-Aids.
It's pretty cool. Like you just see the person's head like in the window of this UFO or flying saucer. And it is cool. And I like to get on board with any kind of new aircraft.
You couldn't even get in this aircraft.
Easy.
I couldn't.
I could get in. It's just chances are I couldn't take off.
I'm pretty sure Andy's the only, maybe Alex. Those two are the only ones who could even get in this thing.
Well, they're the heroes. We're the ones in the wreckage.
Physically, I'm not sure I could mentally.
It is a tight fit, and it's like you take off where you're standing straight up, and then it transitions to horizontal. So then you're like kind of on your stomach while you're flying. It is. It's an interesting design.
But you can't even raise your arms like Superman?
No. You're sitting there with they got two little handles.
Yeah.
I'm going to borrow another military saying that I heard way too often in basic training. Excellent initiative, poor execution.
So far, it's a working prototype.
250 miles an hour. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Low payload, huge price.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where this fits in.
It's, they definitely need to work on the payload. And the price, actually, an ambulance costs $300,000.
You can fit more than 200 pounds in an ambulance.
You can carry your patient in an ambulance.
We're working through some details.
See, I know when your voice gets that high, I know you're in trouble.
Yeah, no, it's just I see some really cool concepts from time to time.
Oh, see, now he's using the calm professor voice. He goes from up here high pitch where he's in trouble to like, okay, let me just bring it right down. I'm just going to keep this real simple and straight, and we're just going to talk right through it. It'll be fine.
That's right. No, hey, there's a lot of smart people at this company. They got engineering titles anyways. And they definitely said, you know what? Flying saucer. And people are on board. I don't know. One day you will be arrested by 2040.
I have one of those in my garage. Yeah, everybody else will.
Yeah, by 2040 for the kids.
You can correct me.
Yeah, all right.
I will eat those words.
I'll put a note. I'll put it in my calendar. Jan 1, 2040. Yeah. All right, Jeff. What's your in case you missed it this week?
So we ran a story talking about the Port of Los Angeles and how it's going to actually break import records. Despite all of these huge supply chain issues we're having, there is still more stuff coming into that port than ever before.
That's incredible.
They have got ships backed up. they said that on average they're still, was it 7? Oh boy, I lost my notes. Okay. Anyway, nearly 100 ships were drifting near the port when this story broke this week. So you still got hundreds of container ships out there, can't get in because there's not enough people to unload them. There's not enough semis to actually take the cargo and deliver it. But still, because consumer demand is so strong right now, because consumer confidence is so strong, we just can't get enough stuff. And this port is going to set new records in terms of what it's bringing in. It's supposed to import about 5.5 million container units this year. That is a 13% jump over the record set in 2018.
And if everything that I've heard in the industry is true, I mean, they're just really packing those containers full these days because it's so expensive to get any room in them.
Well, and one of the other issues they have is they have like 700 containers, empty ones, just sitting there that are basically just in the way. Ooh. They cannot unload these things. So they've got this huge number of containers that are sitting there to unload. They've got the empty ones they can't get rid of because the ships are coming in, dumping, and getting out of there because we've talked about crew members trying to get home and everything else. Yeah. So it is just a backup. And this is despite everything President Biden has tried to do in terms of extending the hours, letting them have more ships coming in, really basically breaking all the rules that they set up to sort of manage the flow in and out of there. Yeah. And they're still backed up, but we're still bringing more stuff in.
Man, people just can't stop buying stuff on Amazon.
Apparently. So pretty interesting despite all of the supply chain struggles. Port of LA is still hopping.
That is really interesting. I found it really when they had all the trucks kind of backed up on the streets, just kind of waiting for whatever it was that they had to for their cargo. I don't know, Andy, what'd you think about the record-breaking year for the Port of LA?
I mean, if they're doing so much business that these ships can't even get on the dock, I mean, it's not difficult to imagine they'd set some records.
Right. Yeah. Well, Andy, what is your, in case you missed it this week?
Mine was about the Parker Solar Probe, which was launched in 2018 to make our closest ever approach to the sun. And that was interesting enough, obviously, because, it's hot.
Yeah. Because they threw something at the sun and it made it.
Correct. Yeah. So it had made 7 passes, then on its 8th, which happened in April, and they needed a few months to get the data back and to confirm that the data was accurate. Its 8th pass in April, it actually touched, I'm doing air quotes for our visual medium podcast, touched the sun. It's obviously it's a star, it's a hot ball of gas, there's nothing to touch physically, but it crossed the threshold of what they call the corona, which means it went through the sun, basically, this little satellite.
That's incredible.
And I don't have a ton to add to that other than that it's amazing, and I didn't think they were going to go touch the thing when they launched it.
Yeah, I got to say I was very skeptical of this mission when it first launched, and I have to say I appreciated the one researcher's feedback that just said, yeah, it looked dusty.
That was their, I'm sure they will have more data, and it's going back deeper and deeper as it keeps making passes through 2025.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm interested to see what they have for us besides it's dusty.
Yeah.
They'll get there.
If you watch the video, this was a cool story. I would definitely recommend taking a look at this one. And the video that they had there, and you can kind of see what they're saying about being dusty, but it is also straight out of like warp speed sci-fi movie. I mean, when they're going through there and just see all of these sort of streaks, I wish it could have somehow been like color video. But again, we are dealing with something that, hot take, is really hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's I mean, of all the just crazy ideas, we're talking about electrifying the ocean last week. And it's stuff like this that whenever I hear something crazy, even like a flying saucer that is made for the petite person, I still like always think, man, that is going to be cool because stuff like this happens. And you're just like, they did it. Really was a pessimist when they said they were going to do it.
NASA, those guys, they are just ridiculous every time.
Yeah.
No, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I wonder, because he's going to get the feels, I wonder what Elon's going to hurl at the sun next. Yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to send a roadster up there.
Maybe his Time Magazine cover shot.
Yeah. Send that into space. Okay. Well, let's move on to final thoughts. I'll start with my final thought. And I was going to mention this earlier when we were talking about the house giveaway, but I've seen a lot more gatherings and sort of like not positive PR, but things that companies are putting out on social media that I think are really cool in terms of holiday parties, get-togethers. This one company did a buck stew, which is cool. They have all their retired workers come in, make this buck stew for the current workforce, and then they kind of like walk them around the shop so they can see like all the improvements they've made over the years, and they can talk about like, back in my day we did that by hand, and then someone says this is dangerous. But stuff like that, putting a positive foot forward on social media could also be very helpful to companies as they're in the job market as well, because people look you up. And if they see that you're doing things for your employees like this, even if they're sometimes a little unorthodox or very particularly northern Wisconsin, it sets you apart from the competition. And I like to see more of it. It was St. Patty's Day when the CEO was making, Reubens for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that. It just, it makes the team a more cohesive unit. And I feel like we could always see more of it.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is we unveiled today, Friday, Nolan Beilstein unveiled his 12 movies of Christmas with a manufacturing angle. Now, we talked about it a little bit on the podcast. Didn't get a lot of feedback because, there's not a lot out there. But the 12 movies of Christmas with a manufacturing angle are number 12, Fat Man with Mel Gibson, 11, Edward Scissorhands, 10, The Santa Claus, 9, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, 8, Office Christmas Party, 7, Iron Man 3, number 6, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, number 5, Klaus, number 4, The Polar Express, number 3, Elf, number 2, The Man Who Invented Christmas, and number 1, kind of a little turn, Batman Returns. Batman Returns.
Took some liberties with that list, didn't we?
We took some liberties. Yes. There was some playful banter. And not all
of it disregarded by certain parties.
How
is Christmas Vacation 6? That's ridiculous.
I think they have to be number 1.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is a storied franchise based on food manufacturing.
I watched that movie 3 times at least in the week before and of Christmas. I mean, it's a classic.
I also have to say, so I just watched Fat Man, which is a gem. I can't go out like recommending everybody go see it, but man, is it interesting. It's not like, but so this entire subplot is where, Mel Gibson is Kris Kringle, who runs a real like government subsidized toy factory run by elves. And, they're just not getting what they used to from the government because, kids are naughtier and they're getting more coal, so they don't have to make more toys. And I'm just like, really interesting. And then the government comes in and is like, well, since there's a shortfall, maybe you could make it up by contracting to do some work for us. And,
man.
Yeah. And so they start making like control panels for bombers. And we're talking about a subplot here. Like a lot of these are on the list because of subplots. There's also an angle where someone's trying to kill Santa Claus, but I found it interesting, and it's one of those where like sometimes when you're in an industry like this and you're watching a movie, it kind of changes your perspective as to what you're looking at.
All right,
I always like my Christmas movies to have a look at the military-industrial complex, a critique of the military-industrial complex.
I mean,
and just a hint of terrorism in there too, right?
Yeah.
Batman Returns, I think, is actually a solid addition to this list. I mean, maybe number 1, I don't know. The power plant angle on it is interesting. The one I can't get over is How the Grinch Stole Christmas, because you can make any argument. You could make. He made 2 solid, not solid. He made 2 arguments. And I just don't see it.
No, he's wrong. He's just wrong.
Yeah. According to just who happens to be a random viewer, Nolan says, any list worth making will have controversy. Well, then this one was worth making. All right. All right. So we've already started receiving some other suggestions for people as to what we might have left off, because we didn't dabble into like made for TV movies because there's thousands. But as we receive those, we'll make sure to add those to the list, maybe as an honorable mention, unless they're just garbage. All right. Andy, the diversion aside, what's your final thought this week?
I had a different one, but first I'm curious, is buck stew Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah, just venison stew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
It looks delicious, and they just made so much of it.
Do they steer it with the antler?
I didn't see that, but man, would that be like the most manly?
That's
good idea.
That immediately popped into my head, and I don't know what that says about me.
Lot.
All right.
Okay.
No, my last thing this week is that I have my Christmas presents all wrapped up and ready to go.
Nice.
More than a week in advance.
Oh, I gotta do that.
And I have the supply chain crisis to thank because any sort of last minute stuff I was looking for, it's like, I can't get it till February. And I was like, great, out of sight, out of mind, we're done.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are gonna get burned this year. Or just
prepare to be disappointed, loved ones.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of like maybe ill-fitting turtlenecks just because that's the last thing at Kohl's.
We can get those on time for you.
Yeah, just like I went to the store hunt and I really thought this sweater reminded me of. Yeah, I'm sorry, I waited to the last.
It was
minute.
just here.
Yeah.
It's what they had left.
Merry Christmas. It's a bag of fun.
Gift receipt attached.
Yeah, Jeff, what is your final thought this week?
So you guys know, my dad passed about a year ago, almost exactly. And going through his stuff is kind of bittersweet. It's tough for obvious reasons. But once in a while you see some stuff, it just brings back a lot of really cool memories. So there's a lot of positive there too. The other thing, a couple of things about my dad is he was a tool and die maker at E.R. Wagner's in Eustis Ford, Wisconsin for about 35-ish years. The other thing is he was a super practical guy. So he didn't have a lot of stuff, but if he got stuff and it had utility, he kept it.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I can remember this thing of binder twine in our garage that when I was 5 or 6 was about a foot high and about 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
And now 40 years later, it's about a foot high and 3.5 inches thick because he was not going to throw this away.
You never know when you're going to need twine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we found the other day was this deck of cards. My mom was looking through some cards. She was trying to find some playing cards. And we found these, which were obviously my dad's. And they were from Wagner Products, and they're called Safety Pursuit cards. Okay, now basically playing off of
like
trivia pursuits.
Yeah.
They're just set up the same way, these cards. And I think what they thought was, hey, when you guys are on break or at lunch, pull the cards out and talk about safety here in the plant. Now, it's interesting for two reasons, because number one, I can remember as a small child going through this plant with no type of goggles or anything on my head. My dad just kind of basically, this is where I work and this is the stuff and everything else. The other thing is these cards are in pristine condition.
Yeah, they didn't see a lot of use in the lunchroom.
They were not used for sure.
Yeah.
But I thought one of the things that might be kind of cool is we've got all these wonderful t-shirts to give away. The Today in Manufacturing podcast t-shirts. So these cards, which were produced in 1988, so they're a little dated. We're going to throw some of these questions out to the audience. Email the podcast with your answers. If you're right, you get a t-shirt. And I also know that we've got a lot of listeners who kind of listen collectively.
Oh, yeah.
Got a lot of crews. So if it's your team, your group, whatever, there's 5 or 10 of you, you're all good. Send in a collective answer. We'll take care of you with a t-shirt.
Oh, man.
But you need to have the correct answer for this question.
Interesting.
All right, here we go. First question. What is the most expensive common injury in the United States? Now, when they talk about injury, they're talking about the type of physical injury you would suffer.
Okay.
A broken arm, a turned ankle, I don't know.
Are we
whatever.
supposed to answer? Or
No.
are we wait? Oh, okay.
We're waiting for the audience.
Okay.
We'll see what they send in, see how many t-shirts we can give away, and
get a
we'll
t-shirt,
reveal
Yeah.
we'll reveal the answer next week.
That's awesome.
So if we get enough interest, we'll keep doing this, give away some t-shirts, and we can answer these 30-year-old safety questions to see what we can drum up here.
It's an I really like the concept. I think like Safety Pursuit maybe should have been more like maybe put one of these on a playing card. You know, like each playing card has a tidbit, like a trivia fact.
I am confident, knowing my dad and the folks he worked with, they could have put a $20 bill inside this thing and it would still have been in there.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they weren't safe. I'm just saying this was not probably the best tactic.
You want to talk about the Packers
about.
on your break, not the safety regulations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my closing thought is answer the question.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go with it. That's amazing. Those are just really cool.
Like they're in perfect condition.
Oh, yeah.
Like this may have been the second time these were open.
Yeah, he brought them home and put it in the stack of playing cards. Yeah. Oh, no, that's what I wanted to ask is, so you played in a factory as a kid?
Didn't play. There would just be a couple times because my dad actually, when I was young, he worked second shift. Oh, okay. So we'd just go down because he would be, at lunchtime at 8 o'clock at night or whatever it was.
Oh, okay.
Once in a while we'd go down there.
No, that's cool. I definitely went to factories that my dad worked at, and would walk around. And definitely, like, the first time you see that bin of hot chips, if they're like cutting something on a machine, you're just like, what's this? And then you touch it and you're like, oh, it'll thrash my hand. It's a tiny bucket of razor blades.
Yeah, it wasn't. The one thing I do remember is they made casters. Oh, okay. So there's a bunch of little wheels all over the place.
Cool.
So, I loved Hot Wheels. So that's how my dad related what he did. He's like, I make the designs for those little Hot Wheels.
Oh, that's really cool. All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. To email the podcast with your answer to the trivia question, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Andy, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Finally, if you want to subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters, you'll make sure you get the podcast in your inbox first. All right. For Jeff, Andy, and Anna at home, hope to see you soon. I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.